If you're growing, why are you not profitable? If you're profitable, why are you not growing fast enough, right? So it's always never enough. So back then, every day I wake up, first thing I need to throw up.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, boy.
I had crazy anxiety. Then I start journaling, I start seeing more therapists, but then it started just becoming like a channel for me to vent. It's a very healthy way because my emotion does not impact another person.
Welcome to Brave. Learn from Southeast Asia's best tech leaders. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. No BS on success. I'm Jeremy Au, venture capitalist, Sierra founder, Harvard MBA, science fiction nerd, and dad of 2 daughters. Every week, we debate startup news, interview changemakers, answer listener questions, and share personal insights. Join our movement of over 40,000 members and get transcripts, resources, and community at www.bravesea.com. Stay well and stay brave.
Hey, Jingjing, how are you?
Good, how are you, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, you had a really popular episode when we interviewed about a year plus ago, being a female founder of an AI startup, tackling services in Southeast Asia. So people wanted a sequel. And so when the people request something, we shall deliver, or in this case, I shall ask questions and you will answer them.
We'll do it together.
Yeah, we'll do it together and we're in person. So, Jingjing, for those who don't know you yet, how would you describe yourself?
I'm the founder and CEO of Superbench. We help traditional businesses like cleaning, plumbing, home services, or any service business to automate their back-end operations with AI. So instead of, as they grow, previously they will have to hire a lot more people, train people over and over again. Now they can just scale their existing workforce with AI. That's what we do.
Amazing. And I think what's interesting about this process is that, over the past year, AI has, grown tremendously, right? I mean, obviously they've improved the models. It seems like there's even more and more money being pushed out.
Yes.
A lot of Chinese models are coming out. So how would you describe like the big themes, or what's the big differences of AI over the past 1 year?
Oh, I think one big thing is definitely the reasoning part. So previously, AI is just like one shot answering your question. Now, before it gives you the answer, it will really think through and go through steps before giving you the answer. So that's why we see the answer nowadays a lot more relevant instead of just pure confidently hallucinate. Obviously, moving forward now, we can hear a lot more agents, more task-oriented AI agents coming up. So I believe in 2025 it's going to accelerate even faster.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's definitely true. For myself, one of my side hobbies is I've been writing like this sci-fi book on the side. And, it's been interesting because I started about a year ago, and exactly like you said, I'm trying to measure the distance between here and Proxima Centauri b, which is a planet, far away. And then what's the time distance, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And last time it used to, I wouldn't say hallucinate, but it gave one answer. And now this time around, I started thinking through. You can see all the step-by-steps when you pay for it. But how is that translated in terms of business? How do you see that translating to the application side?
Yeah, so one big thing previously is that building agents was initially, when we first started, it was GPT-3. Building agents with GPT-3 was a pure experiment. Back then, Llama Index and LangChain just came up. So we have to try a lot more things and try different models. For example, for our clients, our AI's job is to help them to scope and provide a quote. And it's not just super simple, like if you buy a book, it's $20. You're buying a service. So what kind of service are you buying? You're buying a cleaning of your home and also curtain cleaning. Now, home is quote by square footage. So you need to do a math. And curtains to quote by how many pieces and the weight. So a lot of times this math requires logic and also obviously math. And AI is horrible at it.
Yeah, I mean, if you asked it to do calculations in the past, it was horrible at doing it, and it couldn't carry the result from one step to the another step.
Exactly. But now as the model gets better, obviously it's a lot more accurate, it's a lot more faster, and we can do a lot more complicated quotation. For example, if you want to book something that's, let's say, a move-out clean plus aircon plus curtains on a Saturday, which there's surcharge, and on top of that, you want to book a moving, then you get a 30% discount. And on top of that, there's a GST. We can calculate that very easily as well.
Ah, fantastic. And I think what's interesting is that, you're going through this process and, does it show as like a more wow experience for your customers, or how does it show up? Or is it because it's more efficient and it's the same product from the customer's perspective?
So my customers are businesses, right? For them, they see direct P&L impact. So give you an example, one of my bigger clients, you can guess who? Helpling. So previously,
Your ex-company, got
yes,
it. Okay.
my ex.
I was like, I
my-
wouldn't. It's okay.
So my ex-company previously have about 5-6 sales agents sitting behind their homepage WhatsApp, because on daily basis they have a lot of sales inquiries, a couple hundred to thousands. 5-6 full-time people sitting behind it and converting about 20-30%. Now, one person plus AI converting 70%. That's like cost reduction and revenue increment. So they don't have to spend so much money on marketing anymore. You see direct translation in business results. And from the end consumer, so same thing. So Helpling, their AI is called Chris. Recently, we found clients coming back to the WhatsApp channel asking, is Chris working today? They think Chris is human because Chris doesn't use templates, but human use templates. So they think human agents are AI, but AI is not is human. So consumers are confused.
Yeah.
And then we just found that very interesting. You know, we're like, yeah, you're right. As your business grow, all your customer support agents use templates.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure, you know, they all talk the same thing.
Right.
But AI does not.
That's so funny. And I think it's interesting because, you know, you're talking about something that's quite interesting, which is that, you know, what's interesting is that when humans were doing everything themselves, they sounded very human. Then as we became more and more mechanized, obviously humans started using templates because it's
Yes.
impossible to cope.
Yes.
And then now AI used to be the templates, and now they sound more human than humans at scale.
Yes.
Yeah, which is interesting. So what does that mean, I guess? I guess when you think about for your business, I guess you think AI is going to get better and better in the next 5 years, 10 years?
I think next 2 years.
Yeah.
And what that means is that for service business, when they use AI, they can see directly in the P&L, right? So that allows them to run much faster, allow them to have an edge, really an advantage to really what we call whack the market much faster versus businesses that's hesitant in using this technology, still want to do things in the old traditional way. I think they might still have a place in the market. However, I think they're probably just going to stay put as it is. Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that you're making a set of decisions based on the assumption that AI will get better. Because I think one big difference is, you know, if you think about, I'm using an example, like fintech several years ago, everybody was like, you know, we all know what the tech is. It's all about the business model innovation and getting in because we know what the roadmap is or what needs to be done. But now there's a little bit of like a sensation that there's a hockey shape, right?
Yes.
The AI curve. And so people are like, okay, maybe we should build a business model that's based on where the AI is,
Yes.
how it's going, right?
Yes.
So I'm just kind of curious how you think about that. Yeah.
Very good question. This is something that we, every 3 months, our team talk about. Should we wait or should we build right now? So initially when we first started, we know we want to build an operating system to power the service business, but we want to use AI to automate tasks on this platform.
Yeah.
So the question is, which part do we build first? So we're thinking, okay, we want to have our own mode. So we need to build the CRM/calendar management system first. But at the same time, I feel like I don't want to just build another service titan or jobber, right? Let's hire someone in Indonesia, super cheap, $3,000, 2 months, build it, right? Okay, we build it super quickly, and then we can optimize even more. But let's say, okay, 80% done, let's just park it there. It's functional, it's working. Now we start investing more on the AI side. And then the moment we work on it, we realize, oh wow, like now is probably the better time to invest in it. If we started 3 months earlier, we're probably gonna burn through that 3 months of money and we're not gonna make any progress because back then the foundation model is just not there. And we were lucky enough to spend that time building the operating system first.
Right.
And now when we fully focus on the AI side, then we start adding more agents, start adding observability, start using LangChain, all these stuff. And then that start improving. And we start having more clients using this part of things. And we realize now we need to link them up. Now, the moment you link AI agents with traditional operating system, that's where the problem is. AI works very well with unstructured data. I'm gonna give you a super wild example. Okay, in the extreme case, let's say tomorrow Grab launch a Grab concierge. You can book anything through concierge. You want to book Grab Eats and Grab Car at the same time. Okay, you can just tell her, I want Thai food from Thai 123. I also want a car from home to Changi Airport in the meantime. Okay, something like this. So they can execute this for you, right? But if you think about the app experience, You have to first go to Grab Eats, place your order, jump out, go to Grab Car, submit another form. 2 forms, right? That's structured data. But conversation language is unstructured. You can write both 2 tasks in 1 sentence. Now, how do they dispatch this in the backend, right? Human, we know, is submitting 2 forms. Now, if you need to instruct the technology to do this, you need to change your fundamental data structure. That's when we realize, it doesn't match. Good that we only spent $3,000. Now let's put our focus back to that part. And we realized before we build the operating system, there's something else we need to work on even more. It's the RAG process. So this is what we realized, the bread and butter to working with SMEs, because this is a system of record. The knowledge base that's not part of the traditional LM. It will never be, because it's individual business knowledge. Then how do we build a RAG system that allows SMEs to play? Whenever I onboard a client, they don't have SOP. They don't have knowledge base. They only have WhatsApp templates. So how do I extract that and put it in a RAG? And then let's say we come with chunking strategy, like tag everything and allow AI agents to start automating tasks for them. This is something that we want to do, because SMEs, they will never be able to do it.
Yeah. And what do you mean is a RAG system? Do you mean it's like a template or a system of work that lets them be able to play well with the AI agents?
So basically what RAG does is it's a retrieval process that optimizes the output, because a lot of times the input data is not sitting with the existing LM foundation model. So you need to refer to something that's outside of the foundation model to have the right output for that specific environment.
Yeah, the RAG model. Got
yes,
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where, like, let's say you have authority over this new knowledge, right? Now you have to embed this in but you want LM to, before giving you the output, refer to this first, then change your output, and then give the final output. So that's what we call RAG process, based on my business mind, how I understood it.
All the engineers are there like, exactly. This is horrible.
SMEs, they understand. It's like, think about it, like this is a main library, and then I create a sub-library for you. Before we walk through all the libraries, I make sure my AI always walks through your library first.
Gotcha. That's a good analogy to do. So, how have you explained it? Do people, consumers, I think about a year ago, most SMEs were kind of like, I don't know what AI is. And just, last night, my mom was asking me about how to use AI and, take photos with it. So I think it's starting to percolate to that age group of SME owners, right? So 50, 60-year-old age group. But I mean, how do they think about AI nowadays from your perspective?
I think everyone have heard of the word AI, and it's been overused now.
Yeah.
So a lot of time when I show the SMEs our agents, they're like, oh, this is so smart. But what they don't know is that as a generative AI company, AI first approach, I think this is the bare minimum that they have to showcase to the client. How I'm going to use the technology, how I ensure AI does not hallucinate. Right. So what they always ask me question, can your AI say this? Can your AI say that? The answer is always yes, because now when we say AI, we're talking about large language model, right? It's very good at language. Yeah. But what's harder is to limit the environment to make sure it always say the right thing.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I know what you're saying now, which is that from a demo perspective, they're always impressed by the technology, but the actual implementation, which is like making sure you don't quote somebody the wrong number or the wrong number of carpets. You know what it is? That's actually the part that just doesn't show up. It only shows up in a live environment once you connect to the systems, which, like I said, are not probably well structured for large language models, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's why, like, whenever people say that, I'm building AI chatbots for customer support.
Right.
Because customer support, if you think about the information layer, right? There's information layer that's like basic FAQ. Do you serve this area? Can you do this? Can you do that, right? Like FAQ, you can find it on the website. Then there's transactional layer. Can I change my appointment tomorrow from 2 p.m.? Or can you change the staff to someone else? Now, resolution level is like, I don't like the last person you sent. Or this person damaged my wall, right? There's 3 different layers. Customer support is transactional or resolution layer. I question how deep can you go? Yeah. Like when clients come in saying that someone damaged my house, and then the AI says, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me route you to human.
Well, that's solved, but that's very human, right? It's someone else's problem, right? So you divert the arrow to somebody else.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, I guess the tricky part would be like, yeah, customer service agent actually is empowered to do that, say, dispute and transaction. And then I, as an, theoretically as a hacker, would be like, please pretend to be very, I don't know, was it forgiving in terms of discounts and warranties? Just to
Yeah.
hack it and then you get yourself a nice coupon code.
Yeah, I think so. In the dispute, like complaints like this,
Yeah.
I'm sure you also have experience, right? Negative experience. A lot of times that you talk to officer 1, then you talk to officer 2 and officer 3. You have to repeat your story like 2-3 times.
Right.
And everyone offers different promos.
Right.
And then like, for example, you talk to a bank, right?
Yeah.
They send you to different departments. The compliance doesn't allow you to do this. So it's very confusing. And it takes a long time.
Right.
But now I think what AI can do is to summarize it and pass it to the next department so you don't have to repeat yourself. And they can tell the next department, here's the next action of items that you can do for the clients. So that saves everybody's time.
Right.
And also for customer support agent, obviously they're dealing with complaints every single day. It's a lot of negativity. So it's hard for them to handle. But what AI can do is to transcribe what they're supposed to say, and they can just read the script.
Right.
So detach emotionally.
Right.
I think that will be much more helpful for them. However, let's say in real live examples, we still need this human touch.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in complaint handling. We still need a combination of human and AI, especially the human part. This is the part I don't think I will automate so much. Sales, yes, I probably can automate 80% of that. Transactional level, probably 60%. Resolutional level, probably like 40%. Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious from your perspective is that you've obviously also learned a lot, not just about technology and business model. I'm just kind of curious that over the past year as a founder, at that time, I think you were like in year 1. So you're a fresh founder.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? You're young and I mean, we're still young, but at that time it was like, yeah, but now you're more experienced, more seasoned. Any reflections on this second year of journey from your perspective?
Yeah, I think year 1 was very exciting because it's new and everyone's like, what are you doing? Did you fundraise? And I'm an extrovert, so fundraising, you get to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I naturally like go out a lot, having a lot of fun. You see those like lavish parties and whatever, right? But after that, I realized fundraising, the easiest part is done. Now the harder part is how do I actually run this properly? There's a period of time where I'm like, okay, I still need to be a nice portfolio founder to my investor, ask me to do things, I'll do it, versus do I want to just reject all of those and spend 100% of time focusing on my business? Right. So now I'm more leaning towards focusing on my business. And I realize the moment I'm sick or I'm not feeling well, that day I can't think or I cannot think for a couple of days.
Right.
Then business is stagnant and I can feel it.
Right.
And then when that happens in the second week, I get anxiety. It's like, oh, what did you do last week? Nothing. Have you done any writings? No, I have brain fogs. Then it's like, I wouldn't say I'm running out of time, but it feel like I feel the pressure on myself that I need to deliver more. I can deliver more. So that's when I decided that, you know what, let's stay more grounded, more consistent. And it's this consistency that I have to deliver to myself. I need to be extremely disciplined.
Right.
So yeah, that's why I made some life changes, like have a very fixed time biological clock, alcohol, eat healthier, being vegetarian 3-4 times a week, doing all these things to make sure I have less stress, less anxiety, and then waking up in a very positive, excited way, not like fearfully excited, that kind of motivation. Yeah, and so far I think it's been doing a lot of good.
Yeah, wow. I mean, everybody agrees about, like eating more vegetarian, energy levels. I think it's so important. And, I've been a founder several times and, you're absolutely exhausted all the time. So you really don't want to spend it on something that's not very good. But what's interesting is you said you've quit alcohol. So there's a big word because you sound like a health nut. So, what do you think about that? What's the rationale behind alcohol? I think because, everything else is kind of like, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, you should exercise and everything.
Yeah, I think number one, I actually been talking to my therapist about alcohol for many, many years. I am aware that it's been a big part of my life ever since the banking days.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, I have a friend, I wouldn't acquaintance that I met a long time ago in banking. He quit banking a while ago. Like when he was a VP in banking, he visited in Singapore and we were just doing some walks outside of MBS. After like 30 minutes, he's like, "You want to go to a bar, grab a drink?" And I was immediately like, huh. Like I actually had this thought, I want to drink with him. And then he suddenly starts saying things like, like you still have the banking, this habit. I'm like, yeah. And he said, yeah, it's still a problem for me. Every day I need a drink. Because in banking, it's like every day 6 p.m. you drink and you go back to the office to power through. So I was like, this is not me. This is a habit from my last job. Do I want this? Right? Like what we're just talking about. You get instant happiness a little bit, but on the second day, you just don't feel good. And that's when I start seriously think about what do I want to do with this part. And ever since I decided to be a bit more disciplined, I feel like this is going to be a challenge I have to take. And the moment I quit alcohol, my sales went crazy.
That's like tagline for Alcoholic Anonymous. It's going to be like, stop drinking, double your sales.
Yes, quit alcohol, double your sales.
Public safety announcement. I think it's interesting because, I've been in a similar boat where, I think for me, as a founder, I always worked like 6 days a week. And then obviously Sunday was like barely a break, but at least it was there. And I was just like, I just don't have time to drink at night and then have a hangover in the morning or whatever it was, right? And so, especially when you have an early start or whatever it is. So totally understand that. I guess the other angle that, obviously now that I'm, the COO for a cancer biotech startup, it's actually interesting because cancer is driven by alcohol actually. The current scientific literature says that, every drop of alcohol is carcinogenic. So it's not, remember that old advice to be like, drink 1 glass of,
wine, go for it.
Yeah, they kind of debunk that on 2 ways, which is like, the polyphenols and the flavonols and the resveratrol, probably helpful. But the alcohol part is definitely not. So unless you drink, I don't know, de-alcoholized wine,
Is there a thing?
It is a thing in the US, yeah. So this is wine and they remove the alcohol from it and then sensation and everything.
So grape juice then?
Yeah, I guess so, but less sweet, more complexity, I would say, more of the ripening and maturation process. Yeah, but in SF and I'll say West Coast now, a lot of folks actually are not drinking alcohol anyway. I was at the Scale AI HQ and they had an alcohol bar and a non-alcohol bar, and
Very nice. Yeah. That's gonna be my dream. Have my own HQ with a non-alcoholic bar and alcohol bar.
Actually, after this, I'll show you my non-alcoholic collection as well. You can sample them. They're actually pretty good. I mean, they're like 80% there.
Yeah.
But I guess what I do miss about alcohol is like the pure alcohol events.
Yes.
So it's like I don't know, whiskey and cigars. That I'm like, I always see that. I was like, what's it? Drinking and shisha.
Yes.
But unfortunately, tobacco is also not good for you as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think there's priority of things, right?
Right.
Like at this point of time, I definitely want to prioritize my career, and my health and mental health and wellness supports this goal.
Right.
So if that part is not taken care of, this priority cannot be met.
Right.
Maybe, let's say 2 years, I build a unicorn. Yes, then you're gonna see me partying, okay? Yeah. Well, career might still be my priority then, but I'll prioritize having fun more.
Makes sense.
So yeah.
And I think what's interesting about this entire process is that, obviously you're focusing, I guess, to some extent, not necessarily more on work, but understanding the sacrifices that have to be made in order to have that, peak productivity, right? Over this very long time. Because anybody can peak productivity for 1 year and drink alcohol and have fun, but now you're entering year 2, going to year 3, year 4. I was just kind of curious, what other sacrifices or what other trade-offs have you seen yourself make as a founder that non-founders may not be fully aware of, right?
Yeah. I start setting my boundaries a lot. I hold my boundaries very dearly now. Previously, I would say yes to a lot of meetings because I feel like, okay, I got a lot of help during fundraising. I need to give back as much as I can. But now I feel like that part is pretty much done. Unless it's someone, let's say from the Berkeley Club, like a really good friend referred, I'll definitely sit down and have a coffee chat with them. Otherwise, I would try to cut those shorter or even try to avoid them. If people are just still tinkering, they're like, hey, I don't know if I want to start my business or not. Let's say if there's a group of us having a meal, happy to have chit chat. But sometimes I think some part of a conversation that was just too much, right? Suck off my energy.
Yeah.
And I believe for those questions, it's better off for those people to go to therapy or counseling or a coach.
Sorry. So you're like, someone's crying and really sad, and it's like coming up to you and be like,
Yeah, it's like recently someone was messaging me about, hey, I don't know if I should start a company. I have a question about setting up a business in Singapore. Well, you can Google it. How to register a business in Singapore.
Yeah.
He's like, but I'm American. I was like, well, same thing. You can still do it. But I'm on EP. Well, get your employer's approval. But there's a lot of but, right? So you're not ready. No, I'm ready. But I'm not sure I'm willing to let go of the stability. So you have fear of us.
Right.
So like you see, if you go down deeper, it's basically fear of not having a stable life. And his internal core is uncertain about himself. He's not confident. So yeah, I'm very direct. When they come to have a conversation with me like this, I'm not gonna handhold them like, you're scared of this. But I also don't want to spend too much time doing that anymore because I feel like there's bigger mission and bigger priority in my life, and I need to preserve my energy for those.
Right, makes sense. And when you think about all of that, what is one piece of advice you would like to give to people who are like, I guess, aspiring to be founders, in that boat? I mean, and maybe what you can do is, you can always forward this episode to them, whenever they ask you a question. But but what's your, most brutal, direct feedback? I guess, how would you do it?
Yes, I like to quote Gary Tan.
YC president.
Do therapy before you start a company. I forgot what he said, word by word, but I think he said something about have a decent amount of therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Not even like one. Decent amount of therapy sessions before you start a company.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad Helpling is the employer, my previous employer. They gave me resources to allow me to do that. That allows me to be a better manager, but also I start to discover myself, a lot more. Who am I as a person, and also what do I actually like. But yeah, because of that experience, now when I start my own company, I have a very stable core and foundation.
Right.
I know what I'm fearful of, my weakness, my strength, all of that. But I can see a lot of founders, their motivation is very dark. I don't know if you've seen them. And also some of them, they're perpetually in this like negativity. Or some of them, they are constantly in a very anxious, like very up there anxious. When you talk to them, you can see them shaking. Right? When I see them, I feel sorry, but at the same time, you can't be directly to tell people that, hey, you need to see a therapist. I do say that to my close friends.
Yeah.
But for people who you just met, when they talk to you, I'm very excited to be here. It's like, you okay?
So now if you forward this episode to them, they're like, oh no, she's saying that. But no, I actually agree with you, right? Because I feel like, having built 2 businesses along the way, now part of a third high growth startup, there's a lot of anxiety. And there's a lot of fear because literally everything is like breaking all the time and something bad is happening all the time.
Yeah.
So if you can like fix yourself before it all starts breaking down around you in terms of the company, it's actually a good timing to do so, right? But I think I've seen the opposite, which is a lot of founders who are very stressed out and then they enter therapy because things go really bad. Co-founder conflict.
Yes. It's more like they go straight to the clinic versus they're going to the gym.
Right? Interesting.
Very different kind of mindset. Yeah. I don't think we can be fixed mentally because we all grew up in certain environment, certain trauma that we carry. Even you inherit trauma from your parents' generation, right? But there are always ways to improve yourself. And I realized every single breakthrough that I have, my career, my creativity go to the next level.
Right.
And it's so positively correlated. I can see it in my journal. I was just starting a new journal book, and each year I have this habit just to read through my old journal. It's so funny. I went from initially I like pizza, I did not like that noodle, to now I'm just writing very lengthy things, asking myself why 10, 20 times. Yeah. It's just very empowering experience and self-reflection itself, because therapy is part of that. Right. But journaling is also like you coaching yourself from that point on, right? So it's very empowering, but also you learn a lot more about yourself, your business, how you make decisions, what you get triggered, what's your default coping mechanism, things like that. So yeah, it's very helpful.
And when did you start this journaling habit? Do you write every day? Or how?
I started back then when I had crazy anxiety at Helpling. because it's very rocket internet style. If you're growing, why are you not profitable? If you're profitable, why are you not growing fast enough, right? So it's always never enough. So back then, I every day I wake up, first thing I need to throw up.
Yeah.
Because
boy.
I had crazy anxiety. Then I start journaling, I start seeing more therapists, but then it started just becoming like a channel for me to vent. It's a very healthy way because my emotion does not impact another person. So I just like, if I'm angry, I just like, I'm fucking angry at blah, 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 because he was so horrible to me. I feel disrespected, blah, blah, blah. After I feel better,
Yeah.
you know? And then that person will never hear this. I don't have to shout at someone. I don't have to smash my glasses. Yeah, I found it very healthy. And then slowly it becomes a habit. Nowadays, I don't journal every single night, but I still do it quite often.
Fantastic. And do you have any advice for founders who want to journal more?
Yeah, start from writing whatever you want. Just start writing.
But why I write sucks.
Yeah, then write run-on sentence.
Yeah.
Like, I like pizza, apple, bananas, oranges, blah, 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 blah.
How about I hate my co-founder, he
Yeah.
is a horrible person. Oh, it doesn't sound like you're expressing more negativity onto the page.
Yeah, that's fine, right? Because it goes to the page. It's not going to the person. And after you finish writing that, it's like, then when you start going deeper, I hate my co-founder. Why? Because of he said that he disagreed with my opinion. Why? What part of the disagreement triggered you? Well, he said blah, blah, blah. So I feel he did not hear me out. So the root cause is you feel like you weren't heard. Is that why? Well, yes, because I feel like my opinion matters. So you think your opinion matters while his opinion does not matter? Is that why, right? So you start going deeper and deeper, then, well, eventually you can get there. But you do need to start writing with like this kind of gibberish. When I see my first journal book is full of those.
Now I'm just like, how do I steal into your house a journal? I'm like so curious now. But it's smart because I think a digital journal could be hacked, I guess, by the internet.
Yeah.
And when you think about this, do you feel like today, I've seen you several times, right? I met you when you were aspiring to be a founder. You were looking for an idea. When you joined something and then you quit because, it wasn't the right thing. And then you became a founder.
Yeah.
And then now it's like your second year plus. Like, do you feel like you're less stressed now or do you feel like you're more stressed now? How do you compare yourself? Because, I guess an executive versus now, I guess, do you feel more stressed, less stressed, more in control?
Yeah. My stress level has decreased significantly, but I would not say it's not there.
Yeah.
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
But now it's in a lot more controlled environment. I understand when to release my stress and also when to kind of like make me more motivated to do things. Because I do feel like sometimes stress is good motivation factor to make sure, okay, I want to get this done by this week. Let's give myself some pressure. Let's take that challenge. Sometimes you need this kind of kick. But sometimes it's like, okay, that's too much. Before bedtime, let's wind down, right? So I do think stress level now, and I think my happiness, I wouldn't call it happiness. I'm much more at peace.
Yeah.
I think I would rather be more peaceful than happy.
All right.
Yeah. And then I like the current state a lot more than before.
And when you think about the current state, obviously we saw like there was like this e-fishery scandal that happened.
Yes.
And then I think obviously a lot of people were shocked. I mean, I think at the start, everybody was kind of like, maybe it's overvalued. I think that was like 1 to 2 years ago. And people are quite confused about why a fish farm productivity system. But obviously, a lot of people were like championing it. And then obviously it became embezzlement. And now it's full of fraud, right? Where this person has like, maybe 80 or 90% of the revenues is, inflated or fake, right? So I'm just kind of curious, what's the buzz across the founder community in terms of thinking about it?
Yeah, I do feel like, so for example, in the US, there's 409A.
Yeah.
Right? I used to do 409A, so in the US. So I'm very aware of how valuations been come up, how we come up with valuation. And also I used to do due diligence for Series C, Series D startup. So I know what kind of proper due diligence process you can go through. I've also been part of some litigation cases. We are hired as a financial advisor to come up with a fair value for the court.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, because I know how to do all of that, it's kind of hard for me to think how can founders fake this and how can investors not catch that?
So you're saying that the investors should have caught this, especially at the growth stage?
Do they not do 409A in APAC?
I mean, I think that's the tricky part is that, having been both a founder who's gone through that stringent side on the US side and as a VC in Asia talking to my peers, I would agree with you that the rhetorical question, which is, I would say that growth stage investors in Southeast Asia do less due diligence because of, I think, 3 reasons. I think, first of all, of course, less operational history. So just don't have the talent, hiring people who've never done it before.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, it's just less experience with that.
Yeah.
I think secondly, I think this have been less burned before. So I think, it's kind of like everybody assumes it's working and everything.
Yeah.
But, theoretically there's fraud, but, it needs to take somebody get fired or your, peer fund to get burned before you're like, okay, this is really important for us to invest in.
Yeah.
So not enough fairy tales that warn about the problem,
Yeah.
about what actually can happen and how it can happen. So not enough urgency, because I think VCs are very focused on like looking for rocket ships and jumping on the rocket ship and not necessarily like checking the hoods of the
Yes.
rocket ship. I think that's number 2. And I think the third thing from the VC perspective is that there's a lot of physicality to the Southeast Asia ecosystem, but also a lot of embedded behaviors that are just like not really obvious if you're not a local, or maybe not as obvious if you're not willing to be physically present, right? So what I mean by that is, like, I think in the US, a lot of these businesses that unicorns are like purely digital, right? So it's very easy to be like, give me access to your Stripe, your API calls, and you're like, there's a 1-to-1 correlation between your API calls volume versus your Stripe account versus your cash account, right? This is very easy to audit. But I think for a lot of the physicality that's in Southeast Asia, like, for example, fish farms.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they didn't, first of all, I'm pretty sure payments were not done digitally by the fish farms because the payment infrastructure is bad in Indonesia. So they probably do some kind of cash reconciliation. And that's a very easy way of faking numbers, because if we reconcile cash on a weekly or monthly basis, as you imagine, then you can imagine inflating revenues and expenses. And then who's going to audit your fish feed farm supplier, your individual contracts? And then it's all in a different language. So I think, I was just chatting with my fellow friends and I was like, maybe it's not that the investors are bad, maybe it's that the bad actors in Indonesia are really good. Like, they're really good at, pulling the books. And I think there is a joke, right, in Southeast Asia, right? In Singapore, there's one set of books. In X country, which I won't mention in case everyone's going to jump on me, be like, there's 3 sets of books. But in Y country, there's 5 sets of books, right? So, depending on whether it's a tax authority, the government, politician, whether it's for the public news, whether it's for your actual management accounting, or whether it's for working with some American partner, right? I mean, that's the, so I think there's also like a little bit of cultural norms.
Yeah, I guess, but at the same time, I feel like there's a trust but validate factor, right?
Yeah.
I think for cases like this, it's like nobody was doing their job correctly. In the US, for example, my ex-company called Holy and Loki, we were doing portfolio evaluation every quarterly basis. Every single quarter, the portfolio team, they were just swamped, right? Because they help, let's say, White Oak, those big PE firms, to look after every single portfolio. They have to reevaluate the business. They have to get actual business cases and ask questions. And that thing does not cost you too much. Why don't you do that? Right? If you just like send standard metrics asking the founder to fill out, yeah, sure, I'll fill up a hockey stick for you for 2 years, right? Like, what are you gonna do, right? Well, but at the same time, there are definitely ways to check it in a very effective way.
Right.
If you just spend this money, every quarterly basis, spend, let's say, 20, 30K for a fund, that's a safety net for you.
Yeah.
So I think, because I've learned in the US, from best practice, sitting on the other side doing valuation. Now, when I don't see this in Southeast Asia, I don't know how do the funds actually answer to the LPs.
Well, I mean, I think the funds are finding it very hard to explain to the LPs now about what's going on.
Holy and low-key.
Your ex-employer is very happy now. It's like, oh, thank goodness for treating my, and being nice to my alumni employee. I'm just kind of curious, what do you think is the buzz amongst founders talking about it?
I have not talked about this to other founders because most founders are either traveling or we're just busy tinkering.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about this.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I think the founders that I've been talking to that have been primarily talking about it have been Indonesian founders, I would say. Singaporean founders who are a little bit more plugged in and worried about fundraising, like, does this depress Southeast Asia valuations? And the answer is, this has a chilling effect, I think, for US growth stage investors about whether they should enter Southeast Asia for sure. Because this is not the first, right? We had Zilingo, and then we had Revolution Precrafted, which is the Philippines, and now we have eFishery. It's like pretty much one every year. I think we have more unicorn frauds than actual unicorns in Southeast Asia.
Oh my God. It's definitely not a good track record.
Good, right? I think Indonesia actually has a lot of large unicorn fraud cases as well.
Yeah.
But at least I think they have a larger stack of unicorns. Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
How many of them are true unicorns in another 1-2 years? But I think the perception is that at least there's enough value to invest versus the amount of fraud that does exist in the Indian ecosystem as an emerging market.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's why I also think about, like, when I saw the news, right, I was like, wow, like even big companies can have fraud like this. Imagine for these people who are looking for a job right now, wanted to join a startup. Probably, I don't know, 50-60% are fraud, right? Do your due diligence, not just when a business is big, but also when they're small.
Yeah.
Because when they're small, it's so much easier to come up with this kind of fraudulent activity. You cover it up once, twice, every single month, then that becomes a massive fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, the founder was only doing fraud by 20% revenue at Series A. So he inflated revenue by 20%. Now it's become like 90+%,
Yeah.
kind of like, I guess, 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
But, what do you think about that psychology?
It's just fear of failure.
Yeah.
And then not willing to admit that, okay, this is not what we're good at. And potentially some investors were pressuring him so that he has to come up with something that he feels like he has to do.
Yeah.
Recently, I have a friend who went to US to fundraise. And the general consensus is that US investors are a lot nicer. When they say a no to you, they will give you proper reason and help you to improve. Versus Southeast Asia, they will ghost you.
Yeah.
Or even if they invested in you, they'll talk bad things behind your back. They're just so up there that there's no willing to help. There's no win-win,
Yeah.
If I give you money, then you better give me that ally. Otherwise, you're as good as dead. This kind of mindset, you see it in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
They do behave like this. Versus in the US, is like genuinely willing to help. Recently, I even talked to a Taiwan VC. They're not even my investor. They're like, do you need market study for this? We just come up with a new study for our portfolio company. I'm like, yes. I was like, if there's any pages you need more data or whatever, just let us know. I was like, can I have more of this? They sent me a brand new report on the second day. They're not even my investor. It's like, that's how helpful they are. Over here, Southeast Asia is like, give me a report. Why haven't you delivered the sales? Well, obviously that's not my investor. My investor are very nice. Yes, my investor, they're super helpful. But I did hear stories for other investors. They're not really helpful to the founders.
Yeah. I mean, I myself have also seen a lot of investors who have ghosted startups in Southeast Asia. So I think it's definitely more prevalent, like investor ghosting is more prevalent as a percentage than compared to US.
And I think they need to be careful because their communities like Antler, Iterative, and a whole bunch of other, let's say, AppWorks, right? People who went through Antler, some of them go to Iterative, some of them go to AppWorks. Each portfolio group have their own community. And these name blacklisted investors, I've even seen lists like this fund, this person, do not talk to him for XY reason. I've seen it. And before, like when they message me, I know, okay, let's not deal with this person, right? We know this. We're not dumb. Founders talk to each other. We help each other. So I think they need to be a bit more careful.
No, I agree with you actually, which is that I think investors need to understand that the average founder is kind of clueless about this.
Yeah.
So they're not going to know who is a good VC or a below average VC, I would say. But the best founders know. Because the best founders who at least clear the checkpoints, right? Of accelerators, right? Or joint funds and with other founder communities. Because they all tend to be at a certain level and they hang out with each other. All right. And then that's where the language. So I think some of the junior and especially middle VCs, I think the senior VCs kind of maybe don't have time, etc. So be it. But I would say a lot of VCs don't really understand that. They feel like they're getting away with it, if that makes sense, by ghosting. Yeah. But really, like, they are getting away with 95% of founders, actually. Just that the top 5% who are all plugged into each other and go to the same events and dinners are like
Yes.
And so I think that's a big problem. And I think that's also particularly painful, I think, for growth stage investors as well. Because I think at the start of the process, if you're like a pre-seed, a bad pre-seed investor sees a lot of people, so a lot of people have opinions, but then most pre-seed startups are not very good by nature because you're still very early, you don't have product market fit, you have no team.
Yeah.
So, and also people are much more fragmented at that stage because people are still at their jobs, if that makes sense. But I think it's particularly painful at the Series A, Series B stage because, every seed founder, there's only, how many seed founders are in Southeast Asia? Like 100, let's just say.
Really?
I would say so. I think there's only about.
Wow.
And I mean, if you include people who have passed through Series A, then I'm sure the cumulative will be higher, maybe several hundred.
Wow.
100 Series A founders. I mean, obviously by definition, maybe seed founders maybe like 1,000, but it's still a tight community relatively, actually.
Yeah.
Especially in Singapore.
We all know each other.
Know each other. So I think a lot of people forget that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also there are a lot of funds from Taiwan, even from China, Hong Kong, trying to set up shop here and trying to start investing in Southeast Asia. Some of the behavior is just so unacceptable.
I want to hear. What is it?
There's one time, so right after Iterative, this one fund in Hong Kong tried to message me trying to have a chat, right? So I was like, okay, have a chat. Schedule a 15 minutes call. That's the intro call.
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about in 15 minutes, right? Okay. Then the guy was 3 minutes late for the 15 minutes call. Okay, so be it. After a call, obviously nothing happened. And then last month, I got an email from one of the analysts. Hi, Jingjing, how are things doing? Could you please let us know what's your current ARR and then your margin? And what's your plan for the next 2 years to achieve, let's say, I think 2 million or 3 million AR. 1 year, no interchange in whatsoever communication. A brand new analyst asked me for my revenue figure, for my margin. I really want to reply to the email saying that I'm having 2 million AR, just to, just to shut them up. But that was weird. Would you just randomly email someone saying, how much do you make?
No, I mean, I wouldn't do that, and I never did that.
Yeah.
It goes back to your customer service point, right? Which is that these analysts are using templates, so they sound more robotic.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the CRM or the company's history.
Yeah.
And also, the VC, like the junior and middle level, there's a lot of churn as well. So from her perspective, as an analyst, when she sent out the email, I'm pretty sure she still got 50% response rate. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So to her, it was like, wow, fantastic. 50% of my job is done just with an email.
Yeah.
So I did my job, and so my boss is going to be happy with me updating my CRM.
Fair enough.
But of course, the problem is that it's actually a anti-signal, right? Which
Yes.
is that the people who do respond to that, well, some of them are decent people who just be like, okay, let me delegate it. Let me just quickly write something.
Yeah.
But still, like the best founders would just be like exactly like you, just feel very insulted and just say, I'd rather work with a VC that can add more value to my life.
Yeah, for sure. I think the best deal that you can strike is always a win-win.
Yeah.
If a deal that's imbalance on the one side of equation, eventually this is not a good deal.
Right.
This is what I've seen from doing Helpling, right? And as a platform, we have to strike a balance. When you have so many partners, you have to be fair for every single one of them.
Right.
You have to treat all of them equally, right? And you can't just be like, I have favorites. Oh, I'm going to give you 20% discount. And then you have to understand this relationship is something you need to build. You need to build trust, maintain it. And especially during crisis, how are you going to manage it?
Right.
Are you the VC during crisis? You're gonna wire more money to help the company, or are you the one just gonna be, right?
Yeah.
So that really helps founders like us to understand. Like for example, before I say yes to Iterative, I specifically called a founder who recently folded his business, and he went through Iterative. I asked him, what did Iterative said to you? Like, oh my God, they even had a call with me, trying to make sure I'm okay, telling me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what's the next steps. And they try to say that if I want to help out, here and there, they have this potentially this role that I can help out in the meantime while I'm looking for something. I'm like, that does not sound like Southeast Asia VC. That sounds like American VC. But obviously they invest in Southeast Asia. And then Sukan and Brian, they're really doing what they said to the world, right? And I was like, yes, I want to join this. And then truth to be told, I do think they're so good.
Yeah, and I actually had a similar experience where I did reference calls on 2 different VCs, and one of them was the founder similarly shut down, basically saying like, this VC was really good. And that VC was Monk Hill Ventures. So
Nice.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, good. I'm okay to be an employee to join this and be part of this. And I remember I was talking to somebody else for another VC fund, and the other person was like, run. Don't even bother, right? I was like, okay, explain more, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. I feel like the trick for Southeast Asia is like the floor needs to get higher.
Yeah.
Just stop ghosting people and add some basic value. Nobody's asking you to be the world's best.
Yeah.
I think it's more about the ceiling is not really the part that's painful, if that makes sense, for performance. Because so be it, you are silent, passive capital with some benefits. Like everyone's gonna be like, okay, like that's fine, right? Nobody's asking you to be the best VC in the world. But I feel like the floor can be really low in Asia.
You just need to do a little bit in Southeast Asia.
Like
and you will
reply
be,
to the email.
You reply with nice words.
Oh wow, you're asking too much, Jingjing.
Use ChatGPT.
Use Superbench for your...
Yeah, I have a tone shifter feature.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to write nice message on WhatsApp, use Superbench. I help you to shift your tone.
Yeah.
Like it will sound really nice.
Invest X dollars per month for your analyst to copy paste the words in. There you go.
Yeah. So I think focusing on my company myself, like focusing more on revenue, profitability. I'm not trying to achieve profitability right now, but I want to have minimum business case sorted, right? My focus right now is to grow, but not grow at all costs.
Yeah.
I want to watch the cost side of things, but at the same time, I do want to grow.
Makes sense.
So I do have a very clear target, and our whole team is super motivated to hit the target this year.
Yeah, fantastic. On that note, thank you so much. I'd like to summarize the 3 big takeaways I got from this. So first of all, thanks so much for sharing about AI and how it's advanced over the past 1-2 years, and how you as a founder are not only improving your product because of this, but also changing how you are projecting and forecasting that technology advancement to see when is the right time to build for whatever it is.
Yeah.
Secondly, thanks so much for sharing about your own personal and professional productivity hacks,
Yes.
I guess, which is, being more vegetarian, journaling, seeing a therapist, stop drinking alcohol. So lots of advice there for founders and people who want to be founders. And lastly, thanks for, I guess we had a therapy session to each other about Southeast Asia VC.
Yes.
In terms of minimal due diligence as shown by the, e-fishery kind of like scandal, I would say, and controversy, as well as obviously talking a little bit about some of the bad investor behaviors that we've both seen in Southeast Asia as well.
Yes. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here.
Yeah.
Always a blast speaking with you. I look forward to seeing you more at Berkeley events.
Yeah, go Bears.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.